Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are doing well today, wherever you might be watching this from. And I hope you're all having a wonderful month of March 2024. Now, the second presentation I would like to do on Henry Corbin is on his book, Cyclical Time and Ismaili Gnosis. So before I get into the book, I'll do a little intro for Henry Corbin so people know who he is before getting into the book and its teachings. Henry Corbin, born 1903 and passed away in 1978, was a prominent French philosopher, theologian, and scholar of Islamic mysticism. He is best known for his work on the Iranian philosopher Avicenna and for introducing the concept of the imaginal realm in Western philosophy. Corbin's life was dedicated to bridging the gap between Western and Islamic thought, exploring the mystical dimensions of both traditions. He studied at the Sorbonne and later became a professor at the École Pratique des Hautes Études in Paris. His extensive writings have had a significant influence on the study of Islamic philosophy and mysticism in the West. Henry Corbin's teachings centered on the exploration of mystical and spiritual dimensions within Islamic thought, particularly focusing on Shia Islam and the works of Persian philosophers like Avicenna, Ibn Sina, and Suhrawardi. Some key aspects of his teachings are as follows. Number 1, the mundus imaginalis. Corbin introduced the concept of the imaginal realm, or the mundus imaginalis, which he believed to be a realm of spiritual realities intermediate between the physical world and the world of pure intellect. This concept has had a profound impact on the understanding of symbolism, imagination, and spiritual experience in Western philosophy and psychology. 2, theophany and divine imagination. Corbin explored the idea of theophany, or the manifestation of the divine, through the lens of the imagination. He argued that the divine presence can be experienced through visionary encounters and spiritual imagination, emphasizing the importance of inner spiritual experiences in understanding the nature of reality. 3, the spiritual journey. Corbin's works often discuss the spiritual journey of the soul, drawing from the Islamic mystical traditions such as Sufism. He believed in the transformative power of spiritual practices and inner contemplation in guiding individuals towards spiritual enlightenment and union with the divine. 4, Islamic philosophy and mysticism. Corbin's scholarship shed light on the rich philosophical and mystical heritage of Islam, particularly within Shia tradition. He emphasized the importance of understanding Islamic thought in its own terms and advocated for a dialogue between Western and Islamic philosophy. And Corbin's teachings emphasized the importance of spiritual experience, imagination, and inner transformation in the quest for divine knowledge and understanding. His works continue to inspire scholars and spiritual seekers interested in exploring the mystical dimensions of Islamic philosophy and spirituality. So now that you know a little bit about Henry Corbin and a basic intro, now we can get into his book, Cyclical Time and Ismaili Gnosis. This book explores the concept of time within the context of Ismaili Shia Islam, emphasizing the cyclical nature of history and spiritual evolution. Henry Corbin examines the Ismaili understanding of time as a series of cycles, each marked by the manifestation of a divine figure or Imam who guides humanity towards spiritual enlightenment. He discusses the Ismaili doctrine of ta'wil, or symbolic interpretation, which seeks to unveil the hidden meanings behind religious texts and events. Corbin explores how Ismaili Gnosis, or spiritual knowledge, provides a framework for understanding the unfolding of divine wisdom throughout history and the eternal return of spiritual truths. Through his analysis, Corbin offers insights into the Ismaili conception of time as a sacred continuum where past, present, and future converge in the eternal quest for divine realization. The book discusses the concept of light and darkness in relation to each other and the limitations of representing them in a geometrical manner. The book explores the idea of space and time being eternal and limited, and how light and darkness occupy a unique space. Corbin mentions the connection between personal existence and the eternal time of light, and the cyclical nature of time. Corbin introduces the concepts of Menok and Getik, which represent celestial and earthly states of being. Corbin emphasizes the importance of the dimension of light in all beings and the role of time in shaping their form and meaning. Corbin suggests that time can be seen as a person and highlights the homology between personal beings and eternal time. And the book discusses the variations in cosmogonic schema and anthropological differentials in Mazdaism and Zervanism, the Mazdic faith. Overall, the book discusses the relationship between light and darkness, space and time, and the role of archetypal dimensions in shaping beings and their existence. Corbin discusses the concept of cyclical time in Mazdaism and Ismailism. In Mazdaism, cyclical time is divided into 3 acts that span 12 millennia, while Ismailism focuses on the idea of a mediation by the angel Mithras. The book suggests and explores the relationship between eternal time and eternal religion in Mazdaism, suggesting that Den, religion, is the uttering of the eternal utterance and is associated with the divine Sophia. Further, the book discusses the representation of time in Mazdian belief and its connection to the liturgy and celestial beings. Time is seen as a weapon of hierarchy or a hieratic weapon in the battle between the Ormazd and the Ahriman, with the Ormazd using time to defeat his adversary. The duration of time is seen as a liturgical time, with fractions of time being considered liturgical moments. The order of festivals and the naming of months, days, and hours reflect the celestial beings and angels associated with them. Each fraction of time is apprehended as a person, giving earthly time a dimension as liturgical moments. The book discusses the concept of time and its relation to celestial beings and human beings of light. The book explores the variations of Zervanism and Mazdaism, highlighting the preponderance of Zervan and the power of Ormazd. The book mentions Zervanite interpolation in the Bundahizin and the belief that all except time is created. And this specific chapter concludes by introducing the vision of the integral Zervanism and its transmission through Christian sources. Corbin discusses the concept of Zervan and Mazdian theosophy. Zervan is said to have performed sacrifices for a millennium in order to have a son, who would be the creator of the heavens and the earth. However, a doubt arises in Zervan's mind, and 2 beings are conceived, Ohnazd and Ahriman. Zervan vows to bestow the sacerdotal kingdom upon the first to appear. Ahriman is born prematurely and claims to be Zervan's son, but Zervan rejects him. Ohnazd is born later and is recognized as Zervan's son. Zervan resolves to give Ahriman a reign of 9,000 years before Ohnazd takes over. The book states that Zervanism imposes the primogeniture of Ahriman and that his reign is legitimate. The dialectic of yes and no introduced into the Godhead leads to a cosmogony with a cycle of Ahriman followed by a new aeon of Ormazd. The eschatological resolution of the present aeon is the elimination of the power of darkness. Corbin mentions the concept of fravartis, celestial archetypes, that aid Ormazd in defending his creation against Ahriman's assault. Corbin discusses the Zervanite concept of entities and their choices in the eternal struggle between good and evil, and the book emphasizes the importance of the celestial archetypes and the role of the fravartis, beings who choose to battle evil on earth. The book also explores the concept of an angel soul or destiny and the idea of Ormazd as an active and suffering god. And Corbin mentions the idea of a Gothic style of cosmology and the role of angels in revealing the eternal future to Ormazd. There is a mention of a mediator figure, Mithras, and the idea of unity mediating between light and darkness. The book also mentions the need for a dramaturgical alterations in the Zervanite schema. Zervan, a being of light and the greatest among the angels, is a central figure in the idea of temporalizing time, representing a shift towards duality and cyclical time. The doubts expressed by Zervan and the Geo-Martians reflect metaphysical concerns about the nature of the universe. Angels, such as Zervan, fulfill a mediating role and play a significant role in various mystical traditions, such as the Jewish literature. In the Ismaili schema, Zervan is seen as a mediator of victory over darkness and his victory over himself, with his companions contributing to this victory. The descent of man's frailties to earth signals a shift from eternal time to limited one. Every individual has a celestial counterpart or archetype, and their relationship with their angel allows them to be perceived as a complete whole. Zervan is personified as wisdom, destiny, light, and glory, and the visualization of eternal time as a person signifies a compensation for limited earthly time. The concept of, quote, I am thy Dana, unquote, can be understood as the equivalent of I am thine eternity. Eternal time can manifest itself in various forms and figures, providing a foundation for its epiphanies and allowing for the transition from hypostasis to function. The concept of unity and the totality can also be seen in the archangelic heptad in the early Christianity. The mode of existence of the soul is characterized by individuality, and the epiphanies of the aeon reflect this individuation. Zervan represents eternal wisdom and destiny and is closely associated with the celestial light of glory. Destiny and eternity are imparted to every being of light as its soul. The figure of Zervan is closely related to the figure of the agathos daemon, the celestial partner or angel. The daemon paradros represents the characteristic mode of being a soul for which time is personified. This concept is reflected in the Mazdian Angelology as well. The same name can be used to refer to the celestial entity and its earthly counterpart, emphasizing its reference to the celestial archetype. The book discusses the concept of nous in Hermeticism and its connection to angelology and human knowledge. It also mentions the symbolism of the Kosti in Zoroastrianism and the idea of anticipation in rites and mental iconography. Additionally, it explores the vision of Dana in Mazdaism, Manichaeism, Sufism, and Buddhism, as well as the ecstatic anticipation in the liturgy of Mithras. The book further highlights the significance of angelology in Ismaili Gnosis and its relation to philosophy and cosmology. And this specific part mentions a debate between Abu Hatim Razi and another philosopher regarding the eternal nature of time. Going forward, the book discusses the concept of time and its different aspects, including absolute time and limited time. It explores the idea of philosophers such as Razi's and Nasir Khosraw, who argue that time can be eternal and measured. These ideas connect to Mazdian cosmogony and Ismaili theosophy. The book discusses the concept of eternally being and eternally actuation of being in Ismaili philosophy. The eternally being is considered the supreme Godhead and is related to Arabic paradigms. The first archangelical hypostasis is the eternal personification of the Godhead. The archangel is the eternal action and passion, and the duality of actio and passio is repeated at every degree, leading to the eternal birth of a new archangel. This cyclical time leads back to the origin and is a form of exegesis. The generation of time and redemption by time can be viewed differently depending on different sources. One schema describes the procession of 5 archangelical hypostasis, while another schema develops the procession of 10 hypostasis, with a crisis occurring with the third. In eternal time, the procession of archangelical hypostasis is eternal, and manifested as a perfect hierarchy. If there is a surpassing or rupture, it causes a fraction of pure ether that becomes impermeable to light. The Ismaili Theosophists described the catastrophe that befell one of the angels of the pleroma of the Ibda. The temporal dimension introduces an alien dimension of opacity, which is considered the radical evil. The Ismaili ethic encourages humans to strive for higher excellence and rise above themselves. The rupture took place when the prime intelligence recognized the mystery of its being, leading to the creation of the angel who is the soul of the world. The obedience of the other intelligences to the prime intelligence led to a rupture and the appearance of the third archangel. The third archangel refused to recognize the precedence of the other intelligences and created a gap between himself and the eternal the cycle of existence. This caused a regression and the emanation of 7 other intelligences. The drama of the angel in heaven serves as the prologue to the drama of mankind. The retard introduces opacity in the dimension of pure light, representing darkness. Iblis, Satan, is born within the angelic being and is expelled from the angel, becoming alien to him. The book further goes into the discussion that Iblis is hurled to earth and his form becomes purely demonic. The third angel becomes the mediator and is responsible for an entire universe of angels formed in his image. The movement of conversion by this angel is accompanied by an appeal that some heed and others deny. The former resemble the Mazdian Fravertes and are the celestial archetypes of the earthly heralds of the mystical Dawat, while the latter are the posterity of Iblis who continually appear until they are extinguished. The archangel creates a cosmos for the angels, which serves as the instrument of their purification and the stages for their battles. The Ismaili theosophy represents the idea that present mankind descended from a superior mankind through a catastrophe. The Adam of the Bible and the Quran belonged to this superior race, and Adam was one of the last survivors from the previous cycle. The book also discusses a dialogue between the earthly angels and the last Imam of the cycle, who declares, "I know what you do not know." The drama of the new cycle consists of the revolt of Iblis, the vengeance of Iblis, and the error of the Hierophant. Harith ibn Murrah, one of the dignitaries, embodies Iblis and refuses to recognize the new religious law. When the angel tears Iblis from within him, Harith becomes an incarnation of Iblis Ahriman. The book discusses the concept of resurrection in Ismaili esotericism, particularly the role of Adam and the Imam as initiators of this process. It emphasizes the need of the Imam as the ultimate exegete of mankind, leading them back to their celestial origin. The expectation of the Imam resurrector commands a process of resurrection within the esoteric saudality, with each adept responsible for causing others to do and rise to their former rank. This ethic of resurrection reflects the responsibility each adept bears for the entire temple of the imamate. The book discusses the concept of exemplification and the role of archetypal persons as Ismaili philosophy. It suggests that all mental or ideal reality refer back to a concrete person, and that true understanding and existence can be achieved by personifying abstract concepts. Corbin also explores the idea of paradise as a mode of being that can be realized in a person who exemplifies it. Further, the book discusses the concept of personhood and existence in relation to action, thought, and word. It explores the idea that every action, thought, or word reflects and personifies the agent, making them what they are. It also introduces the notion of an angel who represents the thought or word of the person. The book suggests that the person is an agent only in a superficial sense, and that the thought or word that is thought through them is more active. It describes a hermeneutic circle that combines angelology and angelomorphosis, and how the person's action is their own form. The book also discusses the homology of cycles of resurrection, where the adept progresses through different levels of existence, resembling paradise for the level below. Each spiritual degree is seen as a resurrection, bringing the adept closer to immaterial forms. Resurrection is achieved through a simultaneous action and passion, where each adept must bring the next one to a higher rank. This movement of elevation is propagated through the mystical hierarchy, leading to the ultimate grand resurrection. In both Ismailism and Mazdaism, resurrection is not a one-time event, but a continuous process that involves the transformation of each individual. It is characterized by the encounter between the human self and the celestial self, resulting in the realization of one's true identity. This celestial dimension is only realized after completing the cycle of resurrections. The purpose of coming into this world is to understand and convert its metaphorical reality into its true reality. The book explores the concept of theophanic visions in various religious texts, including the Acts of Peter, Acts of John, and Origen's writings. It suggests that these visions are individual and subjective, appearing differently to each person based on their capacity and dimension of being. This idea is also seen in Ismaili Gnosis, where the divine epiphanies manifested to each individual in accordance with their capacity. The book discusses the concept of Docetism and its various interpretations in different religious traditions, such as in the Quran, Shia Gnosis, and Mahayana Buddhism. It also explores the contrast between Docetism and the hypostatic union with the role of Angelology and Christology. Ismaili Gnosis emphasizes that the human form perceived by the senses cannot be the form of a divine incarnation and must undergo a transformation by the soul in order to be perceived at a theophanic level. Ismaili Gnosis extends the concept of visions and theophanies into a cyclical time, and it introduces the idea of degrees of dignity and aptitude. Ismaili Gnosis is an extension of a Christianity that had returned to the archetypes, particularly Judeo-Christianity or Abionism. The common traits between Abionism and Ismaili Gnosis lie in the doctrine of the true prophet and the concept of Adam. The Ismaili theosophy speaks of a primordial Adam who was initially invested with the imamate and was immune to sin. This Adam Christos is revealed through a succession of epiphany forms, such as Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. The book further discusses the idea of Christology in different theological perspectives, including Islamic theology and Ebonite Christology. It explores the concept of theophanic persons and their succession, as well as the distinction between Angelos Christos and Jesus. There is also mention of the adoptionism belief and notions of recapitulation and the integration and the growth of an epiphany figure. The book touches on Ismaili Gnosis and Avicennicism and the role of Angelos Christos as the homologue of Christos Atomus. Additionally, it also mentions the patterns of Ebonite Christology and its contrast with official Christology. The book discusses the relationship between Latin Avicennism and Orthodox scholasticism, comparing it to the relation between angel Christology and official Christology, or Christology. It also mentions the soteriology of the angel Christology and its contrast with Orthodox soteriology, emphasizing the role of knowledge and epiphany. The book further explores the identification of Christos with the Archangel Gabriel and the angel anthropology and atomology. Associated with this identification, this specific chapter concludes by discussing the integration of Gabriel and Jesus in Mazdian terms. The book discusses the role of the angel Gabriel in Islamic theology and its connections to the concept of the Holy Spirit, Christology, and Sophia. It also explores the transition from prophetology to imamology in Shiism and the significance of personal experience in imamology. Additionally, it also mentions the Avicennan philosopher's interpretation of the active intelligence and its connection to the Madonna Intelligenza and the Fedeli di Amor meditation. The Ismaili Gnosis is also briefly mentioned in this chapter, particularly its etymology and the cycle of divine epiphanies. Further, the book discusses the unique doctrine that absolves Adam of all sin and recognizes the theophany of the five Mohammedans as a new manifestation of the divine spirit. It explores interpretations of the fall of the angels and introduces the Ismailian etymology, which presents Adam's fault as a different from traditional interpretations. The drama in heaven involving the spiritual Adam and the hierarchy of divine epiphanies is already decided and has consequences in successive cycles. The angel of the pleroma becomes the creative demiurge of our world to help his followers in their combat against the progeny of shadow and negation. The original and universal Adam appears on the island of Ceylon, representing a receptacle of souls and becoming the first Imam. The celestial Anthropos cannot be incarnated on earth, but the initial Adam represents his epiphanic form. The book discusses the primordial earthly Adam as the shining sun among the other heavenly bodies. He is seen as the respiratory of the imamate and the precursor of the imams. The cycle of epiphany is followed by a cycle of occultation, and the transition between the two marks a fall caused by drama and the pleroma. Corbin also mentions 2 episodes from the Quran where the angels question the placement of a viceroy on earth and are ordered to bow down to the Imam. The interpretation by Ismailian theologians differs from the literal interpretation and emphasizes the hierarchy of the worlds. The book concludes this specific part of the chapter with a mention of the confusion between angelology and demonology. Further, Adam, the angel demiurge in the Gospel of Bartholomew IV, bears the name Harith ibn Murrah and is aware of his role as a terrestrial angel, initiating others into the knowledge of the resurrection. He suggests to Adam that if he knew the knowledge of resurrection, he would be one of the higher angels. Adam is tempted and reveals the secret of resurrection, resulting in his expulsion from paradise. Ismailian belief states that Adam's error was due to his excessive generosity and usurping the task of the resurrector. The Ismailian lexicon introduces the term had, or limit, which defines the horizon of consciousness for each degree in the esoteric sodality. Each had, or limit, is connected to its madud, or the limited below it. Consciousness and perception rise with each new had, leading to a perpetual ascending movement. The supreme Godhead is unknowable, but at the primordial divine epiphany, it is revealed as a person, allowing for a personal relationship. The Arabic phrase, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, there is no God but God, expresses this relation, capturing the mystery of the first archangel's being and divine epicity. A divine unknowable abyss makes it impossible to understand a divine person and give them predicates. The true Gnostic must navigate between agnosticism and assimilating the divine to an already given form. The first and second intelligences exist in an ideal realm and overhang the twofold abyss. The Godhead cannot take form without limiting itself. The angelic consciousness and liturgy of the divine epiphany are eternally accomplished. The Shahadat is the key to paradise and symbolizes the principles of the angelic hudud and the earthly correspondences. Those who reject Ismaili Gnosis remain in the negative phase of the Tawheed. Divine names refer to the horizons or theophanies. Knowledge of the spiritual and terrestrial hudud is necessary for the worship of the unique worshipped one. The hierarchy of angelic intelligences is parallel to the earthly hierarchy. The decad consists of 10 higher hudud, with the first being the cause of the subsequent ones. Now, going forward, the book discusses the hierarchy of celestial beings and their roles in the religious cosmos. It describes the 3 higher degrees and their corresponding functions, as well as the heptad of degrees that serve as intermediaries. The roles of the prophet, wasi, and imam are explained. along with the importance of balance and the notion of proof. The Ismailian sodality known as Dawat has various levels of authority within its hierarchy. The Dai al-Balag is responsible for preaching and teaching the higher secrets of the sect. Below him are the Dai Mutlaq, who initiates him into angelology and the esoteric exegesis, and the Dai Masur, who initiates into the secrets of the sect's hierarchy. The Mahdun Akbar receives the neophytes' oath and initiates them into the sect. The Mahdun Mahsur attracts new followers. The hierarchy of the sect corresponds to both terrestrial and celestial hierarchies. Each level of the hierarchy represents a different stage of spiritual development, leading up to the Imam, who is the culmination of the cycle. Overall, the Imam represents the self and the spiritual growth of the adept. Further, the book discusses the cycle of prophecies and the role of the last Imam in leading souls to enlightenment. It also mentions the belief common among Shia Muslims that the Imam has the power to abrogate the Shariat. The book highlights the strict systemization and rhythm in Ismaili meditation and the importance of the Imam in Shia Imamology. The last Imam symbolizes the reunion into a whole and the culmination of the spiritual journey. In Ismaili Gnostic theology, the closer one is to the Imam, the closer they are to the reality of the Anthropos. This closeness is not based on physical proximity, but on faith and knowledge. The Imamat is seen as a divinity of the Imam. The Brothers of Purity believe in the concept of the Insan Malaki, or Homo Angelicus. The fulfillment of this concept involves the reunion of the celestial angel Anthropos with the terrestrial Anthropos, led by the perfect child or Qaim. This reunion marks the conjunction of the two extremes and is reflected in symbolic descriptions of paradise. The Night of Destiny is seen as the typification of Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet, who gives birth to a succession of epiphanies until the advent of the perfect child. Ismaili meditation on the Night of Destiny incorporates the mystery of the cross of light and the power of transfiguration. In Ismaili Gnosis, the symbol of the cross represents the mystery of the cross of light of Gnostic Christianity. The Imam's priority over the Prophet reflects a transformation of consciousness. Ismailian Imamology is connected to Angelology, where angels and souls are seen as separate entities. The most pure Imams are seen as intermediaries between angels and humans. The Prophet's mission is to proclaim the exoteric aspect of revelation, while the Imam reveals the esoteric sense. The Imams are considered the earthly typifications of the highest degrees of angels. This understanding of Imamology is based on the interpretation of Quran verses. The book discusses the association of Imamology and docetic Christology, stating that the two verses are significant. It also mentions the distinction between the Mustaqar and Mustada, as well as the fault of Muhammad. The book also discusses the concept of dissimulation and its association with the Tashbih. It highlights the difference between the angel Christology and the ideal of incarnation. Corbin then mentions the epiphanic sense of love and the perception of eternal individuality. And the book also talks about the perception of being in relation to the soul and the plurality of epiphanies, and mentions the person of Fatima and her representation in Shia sophiology. And this specific chapter concludes by stating that understanding the humanity of the Imam requires a different plane of vision. Going forward, the book discusses the concept of a hypostatic union and how this relates to the humanity of the Imams in Ismailism. It explores the idea of cosmic alchemical process that transforms the humanity of the Imams into a subtle and angelic form. This process parallels Manichaean beliefs about the ascent of the souls of light. Further, Corbin also mentions the mystery of the cross of light and the pillar of glory, which are associated with the descent and ascent of the souls of light, respectively. Overall, this specific part highlights the unique and otherworldly nature of the Imams in Ismailism. Further into the book, it is mentioned that the pillar of light represents the collectivity of souls of light and also exists as a distinct individual known as the Angelos Christos. The pillar of light is described as a procession of elements of light and angel souls freed from their captivity. The concept of geminity is introduced, which suggests that every earthly soul has a celestial twin, like a geminity. The imamate is compared to the pillar of light and is said to be the coalescence of all the souls of light, constituting the divinity of the imam. The imam's divinity is compared to the angelical archetype, and the conjunction of the divine and the human in the person of the imam is similar to the pluralistic relation between the angel of humanity and the celestial humanity. Each imam's temple of light gathers and integrates all the prophets, imams, and Gnostics who came before, and the imam contains each imam's temple of light. These concepts emphasizes the individuality and individual relationships within the corpus mysticum. Further, the book discusses the structure of the pillar of light that represents the imamate, the divinity of the imam. It explains that the event that brings about the conjunction of the divine with the human is when the young imam receives the investiture from his father, making him the epiphanic form of the celestial angel Adam. When the imam departs from this world, the pillar of light is drawn with him to the celestial spiritual Adam. Further, the book also mentions on the relation between the Nasut and the Lahut, the divine epiphany as anthropomorphosis, and the contrast with the christological dogma. And this specific part of the book concludes by stating that the idea of the priority of the imam has always been present in Shiite Gnosis and was proclaimed by Ismailism as a religion of resurrection. The paradox of Shiite Gnosis is the challenge of experiencing the religion of resurrection while also surpassing it. The positive religion must be retained in order to push people to exceed it and call forth the resurrection of the adepts. The imam is both a corporeal and spiritual epiphany, and knowledge of the imam is knowledge of God. The imam is the epiphany of the existing world, or the existential world, encompassing the entire hierarchy of the pleroma. Each imam is a homological totality, and there are different modes of consociation of and perception of the imam. Further, Corbin discusses the concept of epiphany in relation to the imam in Ismaili Imamology. It explains that the imam's epiphany is a manifestation that is present in all three worlds and does not reveal his essence, but is relative to the capacity for vision of the one who contemplates it. The hujat, or witness, is described as the perfect homologue of the imam and serves as his substitute during his occultation. The hujat is also described as the spiritual child of the imam and plays a significant role in Ismaili Imamology. A knight named Salman converted to Christianity and went on a pilgrimage to find the true prophet. He has a high rank in the Ismailian consciousness and is seen as the angel Gabriel's earthly form. Salman is considered the prophet's companion of initiation and is able to interpret the esoteric meaning of the words dictated by the angel. He is highly regarded and considered part of the house of the true believers. In Ismailism, Salman is associated with the letters Ain, Sin, and Mim, symbolizing the Imam, Salman himself, and the Prophet. This order of rank reflects the hierarchy in Ismailism. Salman's promotion leads to a reform in Ismaili Gnosis, where the Imam is seen as the epiphany of the creative logos, and Salman becomes the Hujat, the human correspondence of Gabriel. The significance of Salman lies in his role as the archetype of the true believer and exemplifying the bond between the true believer and the Imam. Ultimately, the goal of an initiate is to become like Salman and attain a similar rank, symbolized by the distance between two arrows. Further, the book discusses the concept of imitation in Gnostic beliefs and its relation to the soul's connection with its angel. The imamate is seen as the ultimate realization of this connection to Shiism. The vision of the Imam is considered a personal and intimate secret, not easily communicated or rationalized. The quest for this encounter is referred to as the quest of the Imam. Few documents exist regarding the specific Ismaili theory or point of perception of this specific thing, but there is a romance of initiation dating from a remote period. The romance follows a neophyte on a spiritual journey and reveals the Ismailian art of psychagogy or spiritual guidance. The neophyte is gradually initiated into the fundamental questions and experiences of potential metamorphosis. The romance also introduces the concept of the esoteric and the importance of the Imam. The initiation ritual concludes with the neophyte receiving his initiatory name. The book discusses the dialogue between two individuals in which one asks the other to give them a name. The conversation includes references to religious beliefs, the concept of self-knowledge, and the importance of knowledge of the Imam in achieving spiritual enlightenment. A Melkite, or Orthodox Christian, physician and scholar, lived around 820 Common Era and was known for his expertise in various subjects, including philosophy, astronomy, geometry, and music. He translated classical science texts into Arabic, contributing to the assimilation of this knowledge into Islamic culture. His work on the difference between soul and spirit gained recognition, particularly his perspective on occult sciences. He is also mentioned in Ismailian esotericism. Corbin discusses the concept of knowledge of self and knowledge of God and the hierarchy within the Ismailian sodality. Further, Corbin discusses the concept of different forms or levels of consciousness that a person can attain and how they are related to each other. The book also explores the idea of monotheistic faith in Ismaili Gnosis and the significance of the quest for the Imam. Additionally, it discusses the interpretation of a passage from the Gospel and the relationship between the self and the soul. Further, Corbin discusses the importance of being, overdoing, and forming the foundation of a reciprocal in different religious teachings. And he explores the idea of each soul having the responsibility to make themselves the very entity they exemplify. The book includes a story of a man having a vision of the Imam and experiencing a spiritual transformation. And this overall part of the book emphasizes the connection between Theophanies and the metamorphosis of the soul. Going forward, Imamology is described as a transformation of angel Christology, where every transfiguration is experienced by both the soul and the figures being transfigured. The presence of the totality in each individual is a fundamental concept of Kathenotheism, Kathenotheism, exemplified by the experience of the Imam Muhammad Baqir. Theophanic visions play a central role in Ismailian imamology, with the teachings of the Christos Angelos and the personal figure of the Imam serving as a source of the soul's metamorphosis. The doctrine of Hamusia, which asserts the consubstantiality of the Logos with God and humanity, as contrasted with the ideas of angel Christology and Imamology, which rejects this concept. The decision in the favor of Hamusia, or pluralist monotheism, has a significant implications for the understanding of religious meaning, and the imitatio Christi. The personal theophanic vision and secrecy associated with the imamate are emphasized, highlighting the individual and spiritual nature of this concept. It is difficult to establish a church or substitute a social incarnation for the religious idea because angelology and sociology are fundamentally different. Gnostic anthropology suggests that humans are meant to be angels and strangers in this world. This leads to a gentleness and rejection of power and unity. The mystery of the incarnation has been proclaimed, but it signifies the identification between consciousness and transconsciousness. The mystery of the cross of light is about saving one's own consciousness through love, not suffering or death. Shiism and Ismaili Imamology protest against the violence done to the mystery by the conception that God can suffer death. There may have been dialogue between Western Gnostics and Ismaili Gnostics, but no trace of it remains. The Western perception of the Ismailis as assassins is inaccurate. The discovery of authentic Ismaili doctrine has allowed for a proper study of their spirituality, which is not related to the assassin tales. It is important to determine the typology of the Ismaili system of understanding in order to connect it with its closest spiritual family. Structural homologies between ancient Gnosis and Ismaili Gnosis suggest a possible connection between the two. Ismaili Gnosis is a teaching that aims to bring about spiritual birth and salvation of the soul, using esoteric knowledge and symbolic interpretations. It cannot be seen as a continuation of ancient Gnosis, but rather follows its own path. The presence of Gnosis in Christianity and Islam should not be seen as a contradictory, but rather a heterogeneity that can be explored and understood. The oldest accessible Ismaili treatise is the al-Kitab, which reflects the themes of Shiite Gnosis that were circulating in the 2nd and 8th century. The transition between this treatise and Ismaili scholasticism of the Fatimid period is not well known, but there was intense intellectual fermentation during the 4th and 10th century. The old Dawah continued the Fatimid tradition, while the new Dawah of Alamut saw its literature devastated by the Mongol onslaught. Ismaili literature had a profound influence on Iranian Sufism and its emphasis on a personal salvation and resurrection. Situating the speculative theosophy of Ismailism in the context of Ismailic philosophy or context of Islamic philosophy presents another challenge. Philosophic understanding and gnosis go hand in hand and should not have been in isolation. The Avicennan theory of intelligences, or angelology, and Avicennicism and Suhrawardi's theosophy of Ishraq have affinities with the theosophy of Ibn Arabi. The Avicennan theory of intelligences sets forth a succession of zixes corresponding to the structure of major Gnostic systems, while in Ismailism this syzygial structure is enriched with correspondences between the heavenly pleroma and the esoteric hierarchy of the Dawah. Different interpretations arise regarding the relationship between the intelligence and the soul, leading to different priorities of the Prophet and Imam. In Shia Avicennicism, reflections on the eternal birth of the Avicennan pleroma lead to comparisons with ancient Iranian Zervanism. The cosmogony of the Falasifa and the Ismaili cosmogony also differ in their conceptions of the unknowable God and the angel who assumes the function of the demiurge. The active intelligence is a significant figure in both philosophies, playing a crucial role in the mystical narratives of Avicenna and Suhrawardi. In Ismailism, this intelligence becomes the spiritual Adam, the celestial anthropos of ancient Gnosis. There are also other points of contact between Ismailism and Suhrawardi's theosophy of Ishraq. The book discusses the concept of the Imam and the idea of an Oriental theosophy as conceived by Suhrawardi. It explores the relationship between Ismaili Gnosis and the Gnosis of antiquity, focusing on themes such as the unknowable divinity and the heavenly Christos. The encounter between text and the context between individuals are examined in relation to the transmission of knowledge. Examples of variants in canonical texts and their significance in Ismaili theosophy are provided. The book suggests that Gnostic exegesis influenced the interpretation of gospel texts in Ismaili Gnosis. Gnostic interpretation of gospel texts, particularly in Matthew 5:23, are explored by Abu Yaqub in relation to the soul's journey and the concept of self-discovery. And Corbin mentions the possibility of connections between Gnostic ideas and influences in the development of Shiism and Sufism, including the interaction between Hisham ibn al-Hakam and Bardisanians. The exegesis of a Quranic verse involving the repetition of the word God is discussed as an example of Gnostic interpretation. The book discusses the existence of two gods and their relation to the Ismaili Gnosis. It mentions the confusion between different religious beliefs and their implications. The book also highlights the significance of the book al-Kitab, which depicts an initiatory discussion between the fifth Imam and his disciples. It explores the themes of the role reversal between the teacher and the Imam, as well as the prominence of groups of five in the book's cosmology. Further, the book suggests a continuity between ancient Gnosis and Ismaili Gnosis. Now, as we head into the conclusion of the book, it discusses the epiphany of the five divine persons and the perception of these Theophanies. It also mentions the 7 battles of Salman against Azazel and the symbolism of Salman as an archangelic figure. The importance of theophany and the secret of Tawhid in Ismaili Gnosis is highlighted, as well as the microscopic relationship between the Savior and the souls he saves. In the conversation, the disciples learn that each Gnostic is called upon to become Salman, who embodies the attributes of the Archangel Michael and the heavenly Anthropos. The text and the book also explore the unknowable nature of the divine and the dialectic involved in preserving the divinity from assimilation to created beings. The Ismailis' theosophy is characterized by an effective tonality expressing sadness and nostalgia. The Ismaili doctrine of the imamate implies the imam's invisibility in this world. The unique nature of gnosis challenges the understanding of history and invites meditation on the confronting of Orient and Occident. The mytho-history of the Ismailism begins with a prologue in heaven. The book discusses the concept of the Ismaili demiurge and its relationship to the pleroma and other beings. It explores the idea of the spiritual Adam and his struggle with darkness within himself. This crisis is seen as a form of the Zervanite movement within Ismaili cosmogony, and the book also highlights the similarities between Ismaili cosmogony and Zervanite and Geo-Martian beliefs. Further, the Ismaili demiurge is portrayed as a compassionate being who saves his own creations and triumphs over darkness. In Ismaili Gnosis, there is a belief in the splitting apart of a being that was originally single and unique, resulting in the emergence of darkness and the creation of historical time. This retardation or distancing from eternal time is exemplified by the third angel in the Ismaili schema. The concept of retardation also applies to the stages of salvation in Pistis Sophia and Valentinian Gnosis. In Ismaili Gnosis, the person of the Imam is described as having a nomadic or spiritual element from Sophia and a psychic element from the demiurge, resulting in a figure homologous to Sophia. The figure of Fatima in Ismaili Gnosis represents the archetype of a Shia Sophiology and is exalted as the confluence of the two lights. Fatima is considered the hujjah or proof of the Imam and a substitute for the Imam in possessing the ta'wil, the esoteric interpretation of scripture. This dyad of Imam and hujjah is also present on the earthly plane, symbolized by Adam and Eve. The heavenly Eve gives birth to all fellow souls in the angelic state, while the earthly Eve embodies the esoteric content of the Sharia. This sisgi allows for the interpretation of the feminine hujjah figures, referring to masculine initiates. During a period of occultation of the Imam, Jesus is called to his mission by an initiate who received a heavenly message. This spiritual birth without a father symbolizes the Imam's role as the source of spiritual birth for his initiates. Ismaili prophetology shows remarkable similarities to Ebionite prophetology, including the idea of a succession of prophets and the myth of Adam. The Imams are seen as the recapitulation of their predecessors, similar to how Christ is seen as the recapitulation of the previous prophets. The sinlessness of Adam in Ismaili Imamology also aligns with the Adamology of the Ebionites. Further, the book discusses the Ismaili conception of cycles of prophecy and their integration of other religions, particularly Zoroastrianism, and it highlights a controversy between Iranian Ismaili figures regarding the connection between Zoroastrians and the religion of Abraham. Corbin argues for the ecumenism of Ismaili theosophy and its ability to construct a satisfactory schema of history by integrating Zoroastrian prophecy. And the book also mentions the esoteric meaning Ismaili theosophy ascribed to various symbols and practices of Zoroastrianism. And in its conclusion, the book discusses the analysis of the symbolic concordance between the Christian cross and the Shahada, as well as the mention of the cross of light in the Acts of John and Manichaeism. And it mentions the potential for further study of Coptic Gnostic text and Ismaili collections. And Corbin also highlights that Gnosis existed before Christianity and may still exist in Islam, potentially leading to a spiritual encounter between the East and the West. So I hope you were able to benefit from this summary teaching of Henry Corbin's Cyclical Time and Ismaili Gnosis, and it is a tough read, but it's full of knowledge and wisdom. So you need to have a certain level of understanding to be able to dive into the stuff that Corbin is teaching in this book. And I hope you were all able to benefit from my summary video teaching. And again, I represent myself only, and I dedicate this to Sheikh Wahid Azal and the Nur Fatimiyya Sufi order. Thank you so much.